Hello and welcome back or welcome to the channel. I'm Loudguns, and with a new year and a new major release upon us, it's time to refresh the new player guide to help new folks join in get their space legs. New player guides come in all shapes and sizes, and that's awesome because different people are going to want different things. Some want just a couple of hints to get them going, while others want minute detail. My guides tend to fall into the latter camp. I make the guides I myself would want. Before I even started playing Star Citizen, I was really into space engineers. It was only due to an amazing 10-part beginner guide from Splitsea that I got my head around that game. We're not going to go quite that far, but during this vid we'll cover the basics and we'll run a few different mission loops so that you can get your feet under the desk, or hands on the sticks I guess. I'm going to make sure the chapters are updated so you can easily skip around if you need to, or find part of the video to watch back again nice and quickly. Even so, it's impossible to teach anyone everything about this game in a single vid. I'm hoping that I'll give you just enough education to perform, and from there you can set about delving more and more into the detail. So if this sounds good to you, grab a cup of tea while I roll the intro, then let's get into it. When wondering where to start, I always figure the very beginning makes sense. So we're going to look quickly at creating an account for SC. Periodically throughout the year, Star Citizen has what are called free flies. They usually last around a week and they give full free access to the game for anyone with an account setup. So even if you're not 100% sure you want to dive in, it's an early access title after all, and full disclosure, there are a lot of bugs, or you're not certain that your PC is up to spec, then this is a really good way to try it out without committing any cash. Just head to the robertspaceindustries.com website, there's a link in the video description down below, select sign in and create account. Fill in your details and just be sure to use a referral code at this stage when you sign up, as it will net you some additional starter cash which can be really useful in the beginning. Mine's the one up on screen, but if you've got any friends who play already, ask them for theirs. But assuming that you want to hop straight in, you're going to need a starter pack. These essentially have two parts, game access and a starter ship. The game access is always the same, but you can choose from a variety of vehicles. I've got a full video breaking down all of the starter ships, which I will link in the video description. But my recommendation is always that brand new players stick to one of the two cheapest options, the RSI Aurora or the Consolidated Outland Mustang Alpha. Nearly every ship that is currently available to fly in-game can be bought or rented with AUEC, the in-game currency. So while journalists occasionally like to focus on how much people can spend on this game, it really isn't necessary. I also think that when you're learning to drive, you're actually much better off in a Renault Clio than a Ferrari Enzo. If you were to twist my arm, which would be quite mean of you since I currently have a bad shoulder, then I would just about go with the Mustang, since I prefer its cockpit view. However, the Aurora does have a big benefit of a bed which you can use to log in and out. However, I can't stress enough that this isn't a decision to agonise over. The capabilities of the two ships are much the same, and through rentals, in-game purchases and multi-crew, you'll be moving on from these before very long. With the game fired up, the first choice we have to make is between the Persistent Universe, or PU, and Arena Commander, AC. Arena Commander is a really cool module, and I would strongly encourage you to give it a go. But as the name suggests, it's an arena setting, with a number of different match types for PvE, PvP, racing, ships and FPS. The Persistent Universe is the MMO testbed, so we're going to go ahead and select that. Launching the PU will take you to the character creator. Now I'm not going to spend much time on this at all since you've got a huge range of customization options, and I'm nowhere near artistic enough to make anything actually good. But when you're happy, you go click on review. And a really nice feature is the ability to save and load characters, so if you get something you really like, make sure to save it to your presets. This also lets you import presets that others have made, so as is now tradition with my new player guides, you folks are getting taught by none other than Mr. Hulk Hogan. When you're done, just click accept. On your first login, you're going to receive a prompt to play the tutorial. The tutorial itself has got much better in the past year or two, but since a number of you might be here for a bit more info having already played through it, I'm going to hit skip for now. We then need to set a home location. This will be the location at which you initially spawn into the game, and you'll always have the option to reset your default spawn here. It will also be where your personal hangar is located, a little slice of persistence that you can perform a degree of customization on. Now I think this is my 5th or 6th new player guide for SC in 4 years of making content, but it's the first one where system selection actually matters. With the addition of the Pyro system in 4.0, we have the option to spawn either there or in Stanton. But for the 5th or 6th guide in a row, I'm going to recommend that as a new player, you hit Stanton. The Stanton system falls within UEE or Empire space, and it's a lawful area. It's not that other players can't come along and whack you, but generally speaking, if they do, they will face consequences. They'll get a crime stat and a bounty will be put out on them, and if they're then taken out, they'll spend some time in prison. In the meantime, they'll be marked as hostile and be shot at by most space stations and NPCs in the system. Pyro, on the other hand, is lawless. In my experience, it's not quite the wasteland of murder hoboing that some make it out to be, but it is certainly a step up in difficulty, and other players that you encounter there are more likely to take a shoot first, ask questions later approach. So for new players, while I strongly encourage you to visit Pyro, I would set your spawn on the right side of the tracks. You'll then have a choice of 4 locations, the major landing zones of each of Stanton's 4 planets: Lorville on Hurston, Horizon on Crusader, Area 18 on ArcCorp, and New Babbage on Microtech. Generally, I'd recommend Lorville or Horizon since they're more centrally located within the system, and since it's my default home location on my main account, I'm going to go ahead and hit Horizon. Server location will default to best, but you can specify between EU, US, Asia, and Australia. Then hit play game to launch in. You'll get a warning that the home location can't be undone, so as long as you're happy, hit confirm. When you first get in, you'll wake up in a hab. I do love the view here at Horizon. Hop on out of the bed by pushing forward with W and pressing spacebar, or by holding Y. Usually I'll leave this a bit later, but there's a risk of chat getting a little bit spicy. If you want to clear the global chat off your HUD, just press F12. Movement is pretty standard FPS controls with WSAD for moving around and head movement on the mouse. Someone stole my coffee mug, so I guess I'll have to do without it this morning. But whenever you come to panels and buttons like this one on the door, you'll get an interaction prompt. Press F to activate these and open the door. This goes for all sorts of things, and if you get really into this game, you might need to invest in a replacement F key as time goes on. By default, we're moving at a slow walking pace. Scroll up on the mouse wheel to speed up a bit, and scroll down to slow your footsteps. You can also hold shift to sprint, but this will increase your heart rate if you do it for too long. Use F on the elevator button to call it up to the floor you're on and hop in. Some panels and displays will have multiple options. Hold F down to enter interaction mode and select options with your left mouse button. Pressing middle mouse while looking at a panel will zoom in and focus on it. You can then use your mouse wheel to scroll through lists, but the most common options like ground floor and doors are down at the bottom. There's a lot of stuff to explore around major landing zones, but just in the interest of time, we're going to head straight for the spaceport to grab our ship. All of the cities have transit systems that take you between the different districts. Here at Horizon, we've got shuttles. The signage in the game is actually very well done, so we can see this one here is for the August Dunlow spaceport. Of course, we've just missed the shuttle. While we wait though, let's take a quick look at the inventory terminals over here. You'll always have one of these in a hab when you spawn, and there's 2 in your hangar. They're also dotted around all of the cities and space stations. Interacting with F again will take us into the inventory menu. There is no magic bag of holding in SC nowadays, so to get to any of the items you've bought from shops or have stored away, you'll need to grab them from these kiosks or the elevator in your hangar. We'll look more at this later when we get some good stuff. For now though, let's hop on the shuttle. To go into third person mode, press F4, and press F4 again to go into the second third person camera. This allows you to have 2 presets for external views while you're on foot. Hold Z down to free look, allowing you to orbit your character with the mouse. There is no crosshair or HUD in third person, so it's not like you can really play the game in this view, but it can be useful at times and it's great for taking screenshots. To reset the view to default, hold F4 and press asterisk on the number pad. While we're in transit, let's take a quick look at our Mobiglass, the smartphone of the 30th century. Press F1 to enter the home screen, where you'll find a bunch of status updates, your current legal status and jurisdiction, your health, ship data, and your bank balance. Quick disclaimer here, you'll notice that the account I'm playing on is named Mrs. Guns, because I don't see any use in doing a starter vid flying around in an F8 Lightning shredding everyone in sight. My wife is kindly letting me use hers, so if you see Mrs. Guns flying around in the verse, please be nice, she's probably just taking pretty screenshots. There are a variety of apps along the bottom, which we'll come to as we look at some of the missions later, but for now it's just worth knowing how to access it. When the shuttle arrives, head on up through the spaceport. When you see other players around you, it is best to just be aware of desync. Due to some glitches, you can do weird janky stuff like knock each other out of elevators. So avoid sprinting into tight spaces, and if possible spread out a bit and take a different elevator. In the main lobby, there are a bank of terminals where you can call a ship, but since we're at our home location, we can just head straight to our personal hangar. Go to one of the elevators off to the side, look at the panel, and scroll down to the bottom of the list where you'll find your hangar. As of a couple of patches ago, we each get one personal hangar at our home location. This should persist between logins and server shards, so if you want to decorate it with loot or furniture, you can and it should stick. There are a couple of inventory kiosks and also an ASOP terminal. You'll find these yellow terminals dotted throughout the verse wherever you can call in vehicles. Press F to interact with this terminal. So my wife has 2 ships, as there was a referral bonus when I got this account for her. But we're just going to look at the CO Mustang Alpha, since it's one of the basic starters. First we want to left click on deliver, then request delivery to physicalize the ship at this location. You only have to do this the first time that you bring out a vehicle. Then we can select retrieve to call it up into our hangar. The hangar floor will descend and bring up the ship. Take a look, but don't fall in. So here's my Mustang Alpha. There are many like it, but this one is mine. Come round to the left side of the cockpit and hit the interact key to enter. You can use the free look key on Z to take a look around the cockpit. I rebound this to one of my mouse buttons for just easier use. You can also hold F to enter interaction mode and use various buttons around the cockpit. Hitting this flight ready button in the center will fire up all of your ship systems. However, while this is cool for max immersion, it's not the most efficient way to navigate your ship systems. Instead, I would recommend that you start learning keyboard shortcuts from the very beginning. So power everything back down by pressing U for uniform. To flight ready again, hold right Alt and press R for Romeo. Before we take flight, I do want to take advantage of one of 4.0's new features, the Advanced HUD. We can access this via the multifunctional displays or MFDs on the ship's dashboard. So hold down F to go into interaction mode and look at one of these. It can be a bit fiddly to start with, but you can left click on the buttons to scroll through the screens. You want to find the configuration screen and then click HUD along the top row. Then toggle all of the 3 advanced HUD switches. In patch 3.24, CIG made the ship's HUDs a lot more integrated in the cockpits. This is cool from a looks perspective, but I think when it comes to utility, the advanced HUD, which is akin to the old HUD, is much better. It's also good for making sure that you have uniformity when you're switching between ships. You can also turn this on in the settings, just press escape to open the menu, head to options, then game settings, and scroll down until you find defaults HUD to switch these on. They'll then be on every time in every ship. And this is much better, but I just wanted an excuse to show you MFDs. So now we're ready to take our first flight, but there is a slight obstruction in front of us. There are 3 ways to request takeoff, and we'll look at each of them just for the sake of completeness. Since we've just done MFDs, let's start with this way. Use interaction mode again by holding F, and scroll the MFD to the Communications panel. Here you'll see an option for Origin landing services. Left click on Hail next to this, and this will send the hangar request. If servers are busy, you might have to wait a little bit of time as other people leave ahead of you. When it's your go, the doors are going to start to move. We can use third person in ships too by pressing F4, but we only get the one camera angle with them. But it can just let you see around the ship better. To get airborne, thrust upwards with spacebar. Hold up your landing gear by pressing N for November, and then once the doors are fully open, thrust forward with W. To turn or pitch the ship, use the mouse. Roll is on Q and E, strafe left and right with A and D, and strafe up and down with spacebar and control. So let's get the nose pointing up to the sky and start making our way out of atmosphere. You can scroll up and down on the mouse wheel holding left Alt to control your max velocity, and you'll see your current speed here on the left hand side. However, our speed is currently capped because we're in SCM or Standard Combat Maneuvers mode. Ships have two modes, SCM and NAV. SCM for shooting stuff with powered guns and shields, NAV for getting around quick but without power for weapons and shields. Hold down B for Bravo to switch between modes. It takes a few seconds to make the transition from one to the other, and when you switch back to SCM, it will take time for your shields and guns to warm up. You can see which mode you're in here. Now that we're in nav mode, we can get more speed, and we can engage our afterburner with shift to push this further and get out of atmo that much quicker. You'll see the meter on the right fall as we boost though. When you run out, you'll need to give it time to fill again. To engage cruise control and save our fingers a little bit, press left Alt and C for Charlie. This will keep you heading up while you give your hands a break or do something else like setting a course. So speaking of setting a course, to open the star map, press F2. You can also get here by opening the mobiGlas with F1 and selecting the map, but it's going to be quicker to learn these nice shortcuts. In the map, we can see the whole of the Stanton system. The green dot is us around the planet Crusader. You can zoom in on each item of the map, but you can also search for destinations by name. So I want to head to Seraphim Station, the low Earth orbital that always sits right above Orison. Each major landing zone has a similar station. And after selecting it from the list, we can click on route and it will plot us a course to the station. Now of course we could just fly 800 kilometers, but that would be pretty slow even when we hit our top speeds of about 1,100 meters per second. So instead we're going to use our quantum drive. Look towards the HUD marker for Seraphim and allow the calibration bar on the left to fill. Then when it hits 100%, hold left mouse button to engage the jump. And there we are, 25 kilometers is a much better distance to fly. Make sure you disengage cruise control with Alt-C again to avoid splatting into the station. And now that we're in space, make sure to use the speed limiter with mouse wheel. In 0G, it's really easy to end up going incredibly fast, and when you're just getting your wings, that usually coincides with going boom. Within SCM mode and nav mode, there are sub-modes that you can navigate by pressing middle mouse button. So a single press while we're in nav will switch us from nav quantum to nav flight. And while in flight, we can't, as the name suggests, use our quantum drive, but it therefore clears up the HUD and gives you a much better view, great for when you're just flying around and you want to see what you're doing. As we get closer to the station, we want to call ATC again for a landing hangar. Now this time I don't really want to take my hands off the controls, so I'll just use the shortcuts. By default this is right Alt and N for November. However, I do always rebind this to F3 for easier use myself. I find it just lets me keep my hands on the flight controls that much closer. A HUD marker will give you a guide to where your hangar is. Make sure that you've got your landing gear down again by pressing N before you attempt a landing. By default, this is going to essentially push you into a third mode, precision mode, and that caps your speed to 30 meters per second. You can still boost with shift to get little bursts of speed over and above the 30. Now it is possible to turn this off in settings, but I wouldn't recommend doing so when you're getting going, and I myself just leave it on by default even after playing for a while. Generally speaking, slower landings are smoother landings. Use third person with F4 and the free look on Z to position your camera so that you can see, particularly for these top-down landings. Then just ease yourself down onto the ground. If you ever find yourself going too fast, you can brake with X, and you can employ your afterburner with Shift to make that slow down a lot quicker. Now, even though we're not staying long here at Seraphim, I would recommend powering down at least some of the ship. In atmosphere, if your ship takes a knock, it can always float up out of reach and end up hovering. So use I for indigo to turn off just the engines. This will also turn them back on when we hop back in. You could power down completely with U, but then there would be more time when you get back in for your systems to warm up. You can also individually turn off guns with P for Papa and shields with O for Oscar. When you're ready, hold Y for Yankee to hop out of the ship. Holding Y will get you up and out of any seat in the game, so good to know for things like turret seats where the interactive controls are all over the place. Over towards the station side entrance and exit, you'll find a similar bank of terminals as you did down at your personal hangar. Now, it's not strictly necessary if you're going to come back to it in a minute anyway, but it is good practice to click the garage icon next to your ship in the ASOP terminal to store your ship at the end of a play session. Sometimes they can otherwise just go AWOL. Assuming you landed within the pad lines, this will send the ship down into the hangar floor. Just be careful about doing this if you've landed on the very edges. Head to the elevator and select lobby at the bottom of the list to head into the station interior. So the first thing I will do, and the reason I came straight here, is to set my spawn. You can do this at any medical clinic, and it just means that if you have an accident, you start in space at the relatively smaller station, without the shuttle rides and the climb out of atmosphere of major LZs. The terminals by the door are for getting a room if you're injured. We'll get to that a bit later, I'm sure. But we can just head to these insurance terminals instead, since we don't actually need any treatment. Interact with these regeneration consoles by pressing F, and select Transfer Imprint. Now if you do have a mishap and end up unaliving yourself, you'll wake up good as new in a fresh clone body here at the station. There are 100 ways to die in the verse, but let's make sure that dehydration and malnutrition aren't one of them. However, drinking through a helmet is hard because it's 29.55, but we haven't heard of straws yet. Press Alt and H to unequip your helmet. Hopefully in the future this will visually maglock to your suit or something, but for now it just kind of disappears into the ether. A lot of food shops are dotted around and you can buy stuff right off the shelf. Holding F will buy a bottle of water into the inventory, whereas a quick tap of F will buy one and get it right into my hand. Just hold down left mouse button when it's in your hand to chug away. You can hold F and left click on items in your hand to place them. The hollow indicator will show you where it will go when you then press left mouse button again. Then just pop your helmet back on with Alt and H again. It's good to get yourself into the habit of doing this straight away so you don't end up gasping for air having forgotten your helmet. Having set our spawn up here at the station and had a quick thirst quencher, it's time to think about making a bit of cash. So let's go ahead and get the ship back out. Since we haven't logged out, we could just go straight back to the hangar, but I just want to show you the ASOP terminals in the lobby since you might use them if you log in for a new session. Come to this bank of terminals and operate them just exactly the same way as the one in your hangar. Retrieve the ship, and after a little think, it will tell you that it's waiting at your hangar, which you can access via the elevators. If you don't have a hangar physicalized, doing this will make it spawn you one in. Just while we're going to get into the ship, it's worth taking a little closer look at some of these interaction prompts. Sometimes there are going to be multiple possible actions. The default one on a tap of F is the most likely, so in this case it's enter pilot seat. However, if you hold F down while you're looking at the prompt, you'll open the action wheel. You can then use your mouse to select from the options, so for example we could just open the canopy without actually getting in. Since we only turned the engines off, we don't have to flight ready. We can just press I for indigo again to pop these back on. Then we'll need to call ATC to get the hangar doors moving. As I mentioned, I would focus on learning to use the shortcut, but I just want to make sure that I've shown you all 3 ways. So you can directly access the comms tab of your Mobiglass by pressing F11. If you then select Friends from the tabs on the top left, you'll see Seraphim Station is in this list. ATC is always at the top of your friends list when you're close enough to call it. Click the icon to the right of the name and you'll make the call. Then make sure that door's opened up before flying up out of the hangar. To find a mission, open up your Mobiglass with F1 and left click on the Contracts app along the bottom. To start with, we're just going to take on a really simple bounty hunting mission. Just beware of some of the options though. The one we want here is the Tracker Training Permit certification from the Bounty Hunters Guild. But you may also see Pro-Tem Suspect Apprehensions from Northrok. These are PvP bounties on other players, and while the 151k they're offering sounds really nice, it'll likely end up in flames for our little Mustang. For this first mission, we're actually paying a fee to the Bounty Hunter Guild of 500 AUEC, but if we're successful, we'll net a reward of 34.5k. For most bounties, you don't need to pay a fee, it's just for the licenses as you get to level up. In the mission description, we can see that this target is hanging out near Flanagan's Ravine Aid Shelter on Selin, which is a moon in the Crusader system, so it's nice and close to us. However, these missions could take you to the other side of the system. They rotate roughly every 15 minutes, and if you see one all the way out at Microtech or ArtCorp, it might be better to just do something else while you wait for them to come back around a bit nearer. As long as you're happy though, click where it says fee 500 to take the mission and the contract will move from offers to accepted. So first we will plot a course to our target. If we hit F2, we'll shift over to the star map, and now we can see a yellow icon at Selin marking that target for us. It's not always possible to jump straight there, so I'm just going to click on Selin itself and plot a course there. Since the planet is in the way, this jump system has plotted us a 2-stage jump. So first we're going to head to OM1. Orbital markers like this help you jump around planets and moons. And a neat tip to remember is that OM1 is always above the North Pole and OM2 is always above the South Pole. The first jump was only tiny, so after a very short cooldown we can make the onward trip to Selin. Now you don't always have to go into the map, and it's possible to jump to locations simply by looking at them while in nav quantum mode. Now you don't always have to go into the map, and it is possible to jump to locations simply by looking at them while in nav quantum mode. However, if you've got 2 overlapping options, it can be a bit janky. For a quick solution, I'm going to open the map with F2 again, but this time I'll type the start of Flanagan's and select it from the list. Then I'm going to click on Route and set course. When you're jumping to a ground location on a planet or a moon, your ship will work out a course even if it's on the other side of the surface, it will just take you around the curvature of the planet. This jump got us about 25 kilometers away from the target, and since we're in nav mode, we've still got no guns and no shields. So hold down B to switch back to SCM mode and get these powering back up. Normally I would push more on towards the target, but it's always worth considering that these things don't jump straight back to life and need time to charge, so don't leave it too late. In the top left of the HUD, you can see your self status and those shield facings coming back up slowly. We can also, while we travel, do a little bit of basic power management here. On the MFD to the bottom left, we've got an open power management window showing how our ship's power is currently being distributed, with 2 points in each for guns, engines and shields. We've also got 2 points free to spend. More points in guns will give us more shots and faster recharge times for energy weapons. More in engines lets our afterburner boost recharge faster, and more in shields helps them recharge quicker. Our guns are currently in max anyway, since those blocks above are greyed out. I'm going to go ahead and while holding F to interact, left click on the blocks above shields to give myself just a bit more tankiness. Power management is one of those elements of the game that rewards practice and skill, and something I would look at in the future is setting keybinds to switch your pips to different areas mid-fight, allowing you to go more aggressive and then switch to a more defensive stance when you need it. However, for a new player's guide, I think that's all a bit too much and overwhelming, and it's good enough for now to at least be aware to use your available power. Since nothing is ever quite simple when making a guide, this first mission has decided to give us the night side of selling. You can let out a ping with tab, which will just reveal the terrain outline, hopefully preventing you from doing a pancake impression. When we get in close enough, we'll see the red chevron of our target appear. Now we've got two bad guys, so we need to think about who to take first. When doing bounties, particularly the early level ones, it's nearly always best to go for the main target first. The contract completes as soon as the main target's down, so if you pop him and then you get popped by his mate, it's no big deal. But if it's the other way around, then it can be a bit more annoying. Press T for Tango while looking at the target to lock it. In the top right, we now get a view of the target ship, and in a continuation of nothing ever being quite simple, we've got a MISC prospector. And while this mining ship isn't any form of fighter, it is the tankiest of all the possible targets we could possibly have come up against here, and our Mustang's little guns aren't particularly heavy duty. Still, at least it'll let me get a wee bit of target practice. As you close distance with the target, you'll see a little circle ahead of them. This is the leading pip, and it gives you a firing solution for where to fire if you want your shots to land on the ship. Always remember, shoot at the pip, hit the ship. When the pip goes green, it's indicating that you're in effective range, so line up your crosshair and let fly by holding left mouse button. The red diagonal cross on the crosshair indicates shots that are landing. Take your time, and if you don't have a clear shot, don't waste it. Energy weapons like the laser repeaters on the Mustang do have infinite ammo since they recharge, however they have a finite magazine. In the top left corner at the bottom of the ship, you can see the ammo count. You don't want to get into the position where you finally have a clear shot, but you don't have the ammo since you wasted it into thin air and you need to wait for it to recharge. The other thing to remember while fighting is to never stand still. Always keep yourself moving so that you represent a harder target. When you're starting out, there's always the risk that you just hover in place and pitch your nose around with the mouse trying to hit someone. Keep in mind that ships will turn more quickly when you pitch directly up or down, as opposed to when you yaw from left to right. So if you want to get the turn on an enemy ship, you're going to want to build in the habit of rolling right or left and then pulling up through the turn. While fighting, keep those pings coming out with tab. It's really easy to get disoriented in a night fight down on the surface, and before you know it, you're not sure which way is up and which way is down, and one of those ends in an explosion. Also, if you find yourself getting into trouble and losing shields, don't be afraid to back out. Build some distance by boosting and buy your shields some recharge time to keep you in the fight. It can also be good to do this just to reposition yourself and get clearer shots on the target. Once the main guy is down, you can make the call to either just run away from his friend or take him out too. In the beginning, I generally say take the fight. It's all about target and flight practice at this stage. But when the area is clear, head back up out of atmosphere, switching back over to nav mode by holding B. Moons have far thinner atmospheres than planets, so you'll find yourself moving quicker and you'll get through the ceiling, at which point your quantum drive can operate at a lower altitude. Do keep this in mind if you really get into trouble and you need to escape the combat entirely. Burn hard for the first couple of kilometers, then switch to nav and jump to whatever marker you can find. It's always better to run than to lose the fight. Just in case things go badly, don't sweat it. You'll wake up in the medical clinic, and then you can just head to the ASOP terminals and you'll have the option to claim back your ship. When you claim, there will be a timer before you get your ship back. You can pay some credits to expedite it and speed things up. For starter ships like the Mustang, this is really cheap and it leads to an instant delivery. It does get a wee bit more expensive the bigger you go, but this is just another reason to get your wings in a proper starter ship. Now that we've got our bounty hunting license, we'll have the opportunity to take on more contracts. But before we do that, I want to give my Mustang a little bit more punch, While it comes stock with 2 size 2 weapons, it actually has 2 empty size 1 weapon slots on the wings as well. The Aurora MR is the same, equipped with 2 size 1s, but standard, but with space for 4 total. So I'm going to make a relatively lengthy jump across to Crew L5, a Lagrange point station, because I know they have size 1 laser repeaters on sale. Open the star map up with F2, search for Crew L5, and plot a course to the station. The Lagrange point stations around Stanton act as rest stops, allowing even smaller ships with limited quantum fuel to make it from one side of the system to the other. However, it is going to be a bit of time, so we'll use the magic of video editing to speed things up a bit. Arriving at the station, be sure to take in the view. I love these gas clouds and the shots that they allow you to get. But then land in exactly the same way as we did at Seraphim. And since we want to do some ship customization, be sure to store your ship away at the terminal. You can't make changes in the vehicle loadout manager if the ship is out in the hangar. We then want to head on into the station's interior via the elevator, and head around until we find the inner station transit elevators. These allow us to move between station decks. From the elevator panel, select the Galleria deck for shops. It's the only option here other than hangars and habs where we are now. Now, since I am in an unfamiliar location, I don't know exactly where the shop I want is, so I'm going to use the local map to find my way. Just open the map again with F2, it's exactly the same map. By default, since we're on foot, we'll get the local map view. Now I can see here a shop marked ship weapons, so I'm going to left click and press R for Romeo to plot a route. Close out of the map with F2 again, and in the mini-map in the top left of the HUD, you can now see a dotted line route to our destination that we can follow. Obviously, I could have probably found this in 30 seconds of trial and error, but this is awesome for bigger locations like cities. Now obviously, I would love to be able to strap this C788 cannon to my Mustang, but it's a little bit big. So I'm just going to head to the sale kiosk and interact with it to see what they have in stock. Shops will generally have a selection of items on the shelves that you can buy that way, but all of their inventory is available in the terminals. You can use the category and subcategory drop-downs to slim down the selection that you're looking at. The shop only sells vehicle weapons. I can use the subcategory to just see guns, for instance, getting rid of all the things like missiles that I don't need to look at. These CF117 Bulldog repeaters are the ones that I'm after. Laser repeaters are what I've already got, so this loadout will just mean that they match up quite well. And we can see in the description here that they're size 1, fitting the 2 empty slots that I've got. I can click Quick Buy to purchase a single gun, or I can click on the item and press buy over on the right to open a menu from which I could buy multiple in one go. I just need a pair though, and I just bought one with the Quick Buy, so I'll just set that back to 1 and click buy again. However I buy these though, they will go straight into my local inventory at the station. Now we want to see about adding them to the ship, so open the Mobiglass with F1 and then click on the Vehicle Manager app at the far right end of the tiles. From the drop down in the top right, select the Mustang, and then we'll get a breakdown of all of its parts divided into subcategories. I want to head to Vehicle Weapons, and with the empty weapon right wing slot highlighted, click on the CF117 to equip it. Just repeat this again for the left wing slot. The warning symbol next to these indicates that these changes haven't been saved, so if I exit now they won't take effect. To finalise, click on Save Changes and Equip in the bottom right hand corner. So now I'm back in the hangar with my ship out again, and you can see that the guns are strapped onto the wings. These weapons are going to be a bit more vulnerable than my nose mounted ones. If I lose a wing then the gun is going to go with it. However, they do provide a meaty upgrade to the Mustang's punching power. So I'm going to make the return journey back to Crusader so we can put these guns to use. But this trip has guzzled quite a bit of fuel, so to top back up, open the Mobiglass and navigate to the landing app. Here I can see I've got the options to repair, fixing any damage, restock, reloading any ballistic weapon ammo and missiles, and refuel my quantum and hydrogen tanks. I've got no service next to repair and restock since I don't need any fixing or reloading, but for 470 credits I can fuel up the Quantum, and a princely 19 UEC will top off my hydrogen tanks. Just click on Auto to request refuel and sit tight on the pad while it processes. You can always get the hangar doors moving while it does this though, since it doesn't take particularly long for a small ship like the Mustang. Now that we're back in Crusader, we can open the Mobiglass and head to the Contracts app to take a look at finding more work. Since we've got our first certification for the Bounty Hunters Guild, Crusader Industries, the governing corporation of this planet, are willing to offer us a trial as well. This is a very similar mission, but this time we're not required to pay a fee, and we can see that we'll net just over 24k for our trouble. Let's go ahead and accept this offer. Then we're going to head over to Yella, where our target is lurking in the asteroid belt. This time I'm not going to worry about plotting a course. I'm just going to use OM1, the North Pole marker, to get up above the ring and then jump to my target's location. This time we're going to be in 0G, so we can get onto the target nice and quick. When you're within about 15 clicks, cycle to SCM mode by holding B. Since we've got more guns now, I can use one of my spare energy pips to add a bit more to my gun power, and the other I'll assign to the shields. Just make sure to give enough time on approach for your shields to fully charge up, and then feel free to use a bit of afterburner on shift to push speed up a bit to get a bit closer in. As before, target the main target first with T. The Pisces is a much less tanky adversary, and with our extra weaponry we can make short work of the main guy and his mate. With that target down, we'll start getting VLRT or very low risk target bounties from Crusader Industries. You can chain these together quite quickly to start building your reputation and your bank balance. As you complete more missions, you'll grow your reputation with the Bounty Hunters Guild, and they will gradually offer you additional certifications which will unlock extra levels of contracts. Bounty contracts will go from VLRT, very low risk target, LRT, low risk target, MRT, medium risk target, HRT, high risk target, BHRT, very high risk target, those are some creative names aren't they, and then finally ERT, extremely risky target. However, if you like shooting stuff, but you would prefer things to be a little bit more up close and personal, then you might like to try mercenary work instead. Before we attempt these missions though, I would suggest that you avail yourself of the shops in the Galleria at Seraphim Station to purchase at least a full set of armour, helmet, torso, legs and arms, a proper gun and some ammunition. You'll have a pistol as standard, but I'd recommend something a bit meatier. My personal favourite is the P4 AR. Once you've done a little shopping, you can head to one of the inventory kiosks and gear up. To equip armour, you'll need to be wearing an undersuit, which by default you'll luckily have on. You can drag items onto your body by holding left mouse. So first I'm going to drag away the default helmet, and then pop my new one on. Hold right mouse button and drag the mouse to spin the camera around to get a better view. You can also equip items just by double clicking on them. If there's a free slot for them, they'll go straight into that. While it's not strictly necessary, I would recommend bringing a backpack as well. Backpacks will give you a second slot for carrying two-handed weapons and more inventory space. As we've equipped these items, we can now see the inventory for our backpack and our core armor open up windows in the left of the inventory screen. Attachments like the laser pointer, scope and compensator can be attached to slots on your weapons. These will be highlighted with little circles where they fit. Dragging my stack of P4 magazines, I can see that this armor has space for 6 mags. You can individually drag them or quickly equip them by double left clicking. Any spare mags can just go across to the backpack. Once you've used all of the ammo strapped to an armor core, then your character can perform a backpack reload from any additional ammunition you have in there. This is a much longer animation as they rummage around in your bag, but it does work in a pinch. Now that we're wearing armor which has inventory space in it, we can actually buy small items directly to ourselves as opposed to the station inventory. So I will buy a few bottles of Cruise Lux, the greatest beverage in Star Citizen since it deals with both thirst and hunger. Don't ask me what's in it, I don't know and I don't want to know. When you're in the buy window, change the destination in the drop down at the top to your backpack, then go ahead and buy a stack. Now open the inventory by pressing I, and you can get your drink on. Backpacks are also convenient for just quickly dragging your helmet away while you take a drink. And I nearly forgot one last thing. It's a really useful tool, the Grey Cat Pyro multi-tool. We will grab one of these and a true hold tractor beam attachment at the shop. The multi-tool attaches to your armor's utility slot, and then the tractor beam attaches to the multi-tool. All the things in SC that I'd say never leave home without, a tractor beam is a close second to a firearm. Once we're equipped, it's time to find ourselves some merc work. Open the contract manager, and this time look under the mercenary section. Here you'll find the first FPS trial mission, Security Work Assessment. Crusader Security want backup dealing with a small hostile force attacking them at their security post or bunker on the moon Daymar. So let's go ahead and accept this offer and head on down to the moon. Thankfully we're going to be fighting in the sun today, so there's at least a bit of a view to enjoy. You can pretty much just stick to nav mode to get to the bunker faster, but keep in mind that in low G on moons, your ship can clock some massive speeds. Again, if you're looking to slow down in a hurry, you can apply that brake with X and afterburner with shift to come to a stop. But to speed this deceleration up, have a bit of a think about your engines. Larger engines generate more thrust. So our Mustang has its biggest engines facing backwards, generating forward thrust. So if we want to engage them to slow us down, we need to spin 180 degrees. Then bring yourself in nice and close to the bunker. The entrance is here. I think I spoke too soon about the sunlight. Ship lights are on L for, lights. Now in SC you never stop learning, and it's been a while since I ran my last bunker mission. But nowadays the bad guys will tend to spawn above the ground as well as actually down in the hangar. So do be careful where you land, making sure that you give yourself some cover to get out into. Press 2 to bring your rifle out, 1 will draw your pistol. Aim down sights by holding right mouse button, and when doing so you can use shift to steady your aim for a short time. Good job, the good guys won. The guys with the green chevrons over their heads are your friends from Crusader Security. With the top side clear, it's time to head inside where you can take the single elevator down to the lower floor. Readout in the top right hand corner gives an idea of how many bad guys are left. Just go slow and take your time. If you take a hit, pull back and press 4 to take out a med pen. You'll have one as standard. And click left mouse button to stab yourself with it to regain HP. Down in the bottom left you can see your current health, and having administered medication, your blood drug level. If HP drops to 0, you're going to get incapacitated, so try to avoid that. And if your BDL goes too high, then, well, you're going to get too high. Expect camera sway and poor renditions of Sweet Caroline. Maybe that second part's just me though. Press B for Bravo to switch fire mode on your gun. So my P4 has automatic, semi-auto and burst fire modes if you're looking to conserve ammunition. Press Q and E to lean around corners, allowing you to hug cover better. Now it was at this point that I was ready to admit, maybe, just maybe, I should have stopped to buy some more med pens. But then I remembered it's fine, I can always just try and sell this as a looting part of the tutorial. Disclaimer, mid-fight looting is terrible advice, and I definitely should have stopped to buy more med pens. To loot corpses, get up close and hit F to interact when the prompt appears, and this will provide a simplified version of the inventory. You can grab bits and pieces from the body. Of course this dude also forgot his med pens, so I'm out of luck here. Since we're down to the final couple of bad guys, we get markers above their heads, so I made the decision to risk it for a biscuit and carefully finish them off first. Now when making my armor selection, I went with my favoured aerial set because I just really like how it looks. But it is worth noting that more combat focused armors will give you hit markers in FPS that can be really useful for confirming kills, so it's definitely worth considering if you're looking to do more of the FPS side of things. And with the last guy down, it's time to start looting properly. You'll get a warning that you're on private property after the last man goes down, But don't worry, we're actually given about 25 minutes before the bunker's occupants and defences will consider us a proper trespasser and turn on us. Thankfully, this chap did bring some med pens, so we can grab those by just dragging them straight out of his backpack into our consumable slots, and then enjoy a much needed spot of healing. I only needed the one to heal me all the way up, so to holster an item you're not going to use, just hold R. Bunkers and other mercenary missions aren't just about the cash payout. They can be a really good spot to stock up on spare weapons and armour, so that you can build up a bit of a stockpile at your base in case you get capped and need to come back out. This will save you a ton of cash in the long run. Grab all of the guns you can and try them out and find what suits you best, then focus on stocking up on those. Especially keep an eye out for rarer weapons like FS9 light machine guns and sniper rifles that are less prevalent in the shops. Keep in mind that while you can only carry 2 larger guns on your backpack, you can fit a ton of stuff like pistols directly inside it. You can also carry a third weapon back to your ship by pulling out your tractor beam by pressing 5, and left clicking on it to pick it up. Use mouse wheel to push and pull an item while it's in the air. Mustang does have a little bit of cargo space on board, so looking at this pod on the back, press F to lower this cargo box. Then once it's down on the ground, press F again to open it. Items like guns can be placed and they'll snap to a grid inside. Looting armour can be a little bit trickier, but it's quite expensive in the beginning of the game, so it is definitely worth looting a full set or two to just get you going. My preferred method is to tractor beam a guard's body right next to my ship. I always prefer guard armour, since when you're in a party with other people it's a really good idea to not be dressed like the baddies. Then when the body's nice and close, find the interaction that will show loot, but hold F to bring up the action wheel, then select Open Inventory. From this menu we can drag items out and onto the drop icon in the bottom middle. They'll then become a box on the floor. These spawning might jank your character around a bit and knock you out of the interaction, so just get back in by repeating that interaction. Once the guard is fully stripped, you can tractor beam these boxes right onto the cargo just like the guns. You can also use the interaction wheel to drop additional guns that you're carrying on your backpack onto the floor, allowing you to free your slots up to go back into the bunker and get some more. You'll also find a variety of loot crates during these missions, like this medical one. These will contain additional useful items like medguns. When you've attached a medgun to your armour, you can cycle your utility items on 5 until that appears. Then you can left mouse to heal other people, or you can press B to point it at yourself and left mouse to heal yourself. You'll find other crates containing utility items, weapons and armour, so just keep an eye out. When you've got a good stash, head back to the station and land in your hangar. But make sure that the rear of your ship is nice and close to this cargo elevator. Then drop down the cargo box and open it up. You can then just tractor beam the items out of the ship. Now the interaction here can be a bit janky, as it maybe thinks you're trying to lift the ship at times. One trick I probably should have done, but didn't think of at the time, is to switch into SCM mode when I landed, as tractor beams don't work on shielded ships. Next up, transfer your loot onto the grid of the cargo elevator. You'll get a prompt of snapping to grid when you can let go and it will snap into place. When this loot is all in place, head on over to the elevator terminal. If you interact with this, then the items on the elevator are going to be shown in the panel on the left, while your station inventory is on the right. Click on the down arrow in the bottom left hand corner to send the elevator down, and the loot will transfer across automatically. Now once in a while in a gunfight, you're going to take a hit that med pens alone can't fix. Injuries will happen when a part of your body takes repeated damage, and they come in 3 tiers, 3 being the least severe, while 1 is the most severe. When you're injured, you'll no longer be able to heal all the way to the 100%, and you'll get a debuff. A tier 3 leg injury, for example, would give you a bit of a limp. You'll be allowed to shuffle if it's a tier 2, and you'll be reduced to a crawl along the floor if it's a tier 1. Injuries are shown down the bottom left of the HUD next to your HP status. You can see here that I've picked up an arm injury, so it's time to go and get fixed up. Head to the clinic at the space station, and this time use the terminals right by the door to request a room. Then use the signage on the walls to locate the right one. Only the door to your assigned room is going to work. Interact with the bed to lie down in it, which will bring the terminal into focus. Then hold F to interact and select medical care. Next click on treatment, and select the checkbox next to your injury. Finally click perform treatments to get fully fixed up. As a side bonus, lying down in the medbed will also heal you and fully restore your food and drink meters. I think of this as intravenous burrito. Now maybe for a third and final mission type, it might be worth taking on something that's less likely to end up back at the medical facilities. Starset has a number of more industrial professions that don't require combat, and I reckon a perfect one to kick off with is cargo hauling. So open your Mobiglass and head to the contract manager, and this time head to the hauling category. We've got this opportunity for independent cargo hauler contract available. All we need to do to make a sweet 50k is shift 11 SCU or standard cargo units of freight from here at Seraphim Station down to the August Dunlow spaceport at Orison. Unfortunately, our little Mustang caps out at 3 SCU, and even that is quite janky to fit into the cargo box beneath the ship. So we're going to need something with a little bit more capacity. We're not rich enough yet to afford to buy a whole new ship, but thankfully we've got the option of renting one. You'll find a rental kiosk at Seraphim at the cargo deck, and you'll find others dotted around at the spaceports of major LZs and refinery decks of refinery stations like Refuel One. For a smidge over 34k, I can grab a Misk Hull A, which is a perfect small cargo ship for our needs. So I'm just going to click on that and then click rent ship to take it for 24 hours. This ship will then be in our ASOP terminal, and you can see the timer next to it tracking how much time we've got left on the rental. Before we start loading up though, I just want to get an important bit of kit. From the cargo deck shop we can grab a MaxLift tractor beam. This two-handed version is the multi-tool's big brother. It takes up a rifle slot on our backpack, but it offers a much stronger beam, capable of lifting larger cargo crates over longer distances. With that equipped, it's time to head to our hangar and pull out the Hull A. First up, let's go ahead and hop inside. We can open up the ship via the airlock on the left hand side and head up the ladder to get in. And unlike our Mustang, the Hull A has a proper interior, with a little hab area at the back with a bed, kitchen and bathroom. Up front though, we've got the cockpit. Misk ships tend to go one of two ways on visibility, this one's the really good end. You'll note the Hull A didn't have any internal space for cargo, and that's because it has a neat little trick. Hover up in the air, and then press left alt and K for kilo to open the spindle. With this extended, the ship has 64 SCU of carrying capacity, 32 on each side. Land again, but this time a bit closer to the cargo elevator, then hop back out of the ship. Interact with the freight kiosk. The elevator is currently up top, so we want to start by sending it down using the down arrow in the bottom left. Then once it is transferred to the warehouse, we can see the mission cargo boxes over on the right. So we can drag that as a stack from the right panel to the left. Then bring the elevator back up with the up arrow. Pull out your tractor beam with 5. And as you can see, our multi-tool tractor does do the job. But if we cycle utility items by pressing 5 again to get the max lift out, you can see it makes much shorter work of this job. Stack the crates onto the side panel. When you see the hollow image, you know that you can release and it will snap to the cargo grid. We've only got 11 SCU to shift, so we can get it all onto one facing pretty easily. Then when it's loaded, hop back into the Hull A, request takeoff, then plot a course down to Orison. You'll probably have to make a micro jump to Crusader first. When landing at major LZs, watch out for the big flashing white light. This will mark the spaceport. Be glad that you're getting into the game in 4.0, this is a relatively new feature, and for new players finding the spaceport previously was quite the nightmare. When you get in close, call for landing to assign you your hangar, and make your way inside. Now I'm going to carefully spin the ship around inside the hangar, so that I can park with the cargo straight onto the elevator, just to save a bit of time. Then reverse the same process as before, removing the boxes from the ship and stacking them onto the freight elevator. When you're done, head to the freight kiosk and send it down. You'll get a summary of the contracted cargo you're submitting, just click confirm on that message. When that makes its way to the bottom, you'll get a completion, and this Hull A rental will already have paid for itself. Now that we've completed our probationary mission, we'll have a number of options in the contract manager. These can be really great for just heading around different locations and firmly getting the hang of flight mechanics. However, if you really want to rack up some fast credits and cargo hauling rep, I'd suggest chaining missions. You'll actually find multiple missions going from and to the same places. So I was able to stack up a total of 5 rookie rank direct planetary cargo hauls, 2 of them going from the spaceport back up to Seraphim, and 3 going from Seraphim to the spaceport. But all in all, this run took me about half an hour and netted more than 200k, making my bank balance look much healthier. When you are just starting out, one recommendation I would be making is to try a bit of everything. Take various missions, experiment with different rental ships, and find what you find fun. Don't make it all about the grind at the beginning. The credits will flow as long as you're enjoying yourself. So as I mentioned in the beginning, this is now new player guide number 5 or 6 for me. I am really excited that this is the first one in which I can end it on an inter-system jump. First, we're going to need to make our way to the Pyro gateway station. In the Stanton system, you're also going to find gateways to Terra and Magnus, but as of now, only Pyro is ready and open. I'd recommend doing a quick stop off at the station itself to refuel your ship, as you may have used quite a lot of quantum fuel just getting here, and you might have a long jump on the other side. You wouldn't want to get stranded. But when you're ready, head on over to the jump gate itself, and make sure that you're in nav quantum mode. Then fly through the rings, lining up on the end. After you get the message that your entry requirements are met, you can press left mouse button down to start tuning the jump point open. And after the wormhole starts to open, it will then drag you into the jump tunnel. Now just don't switch off, you are still actually required to steer. However, the tunnels are incredibly forgiving, so don't sweat this too much. I did some experimentation just to see what would happen if I screwed it up completely, and it just spits you out. Either in Stanton close to the station, or in Pyro if you've got far enough in. And then relish the fact that you're in a whole new system. Pyro is a lot more dangerous than Stanton, so while you're learning the game, don't feel like you have to head straight there. You will find a ton more missions and locations to explore. Also, just the jump gates themselves, I mean, it's kind of like a roller coaster ride, and I honestly would just do that over and over again just for how cool it was. But I think with that, we'll call it a day for the 4.0 new player guide. Like I said in the beginning, there's always going to be more to learn. This is very much just the start of your journey. If you found it useful, I would massively appreciate you leaving a like and hitting subscribe for more content. If there's one last piece of advice I can give you, it's to find other people to play with as soon as you can. SC is a great game solo, but it becomes an amazing game when you add other people to the mix. You'll generally find the community as a whole to be very welcoming to new players. So while I turn general chat off immediately, don't be afraid to reach out to people and ask questions. Also, don't be afraid of joining a community or an org. You don't have to be a pro, and other people are the best to learn from. You can find a link to our community Discord down in the video description below. There's zero pressure to join the org itself, our main goal is just to give people cool multiplayer experiences. But with all that said, I just want to say thank you very much for watching all the way to the end, and I look forward to seeing you next time.